I've read a lot of books this year, and a lot of them actually stand out to me. Not because they're the best book I've read or the worst one, just because they offered me something that I get rarely from books. Those are the books I want to recommend to people, though, the ones that offer that thing. It's not specific, it's just something you don't see often enough. So I got a stack of books here that I'm going to try to convince you to sink your time into. I'm going to get the most popular one out of the way, but I still think it's something you should read if you haven't yet. It's Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. And before you even think about it, no, I read this book before the trailer. I just kind of predicted it. I mean, not really predict. I kind of just read it and then the trailer came out and I kind of associated that with me reading it. So I don't know. The reason I have this book on this stack I have right now is because it disguises itself as a sci-fi book when it's really a book about friendship. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of sci-fi in here. I mean, there's actually a lot of sci-fi in here, but I don't really care about that in this book. I care about the friendship that we get to learn about. And I should say it's unique in that it's not a typical one, not like two long best friends or something like that. It's very new and original. And while I would want to tell you about what that friendship is, it'd be a spoiler, so I'm not going to. Andy Weir figures out a way to tug both at our brains and our heartstrings. I really like this one because friendship isn't something that I see commented on a lot in literature. We occasionally get like some side character, or maybe there is the occasional book about it, but it either feels unrealistic or kind of sidebarred in the conversation. However, in this book, it's very vital to what's going on in the plot, and therefore you get it center screen the whole time, or I guess center words. I don't know how you want to phrase that. I also think this is great for someone who doesn't read a lot of sci-fi, because while it is obviously an important factor in what's going on in the book, it's not something you really need to understand 100% to get what's going on. Also, the movie's coming out, so it's a great time to pick it up now. The next book we have up is a John Green book, and spoiler, there's two of those in here. I read Paper Towns. I'm going to say something pretty controversial here. I think Paper Towns is just a better version of Looking for Alaska. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the book first. I don't want to just give you the synopsis of the book because I just feel like that's a little boring. I think the best way to explain this book is what it's trying to tell us. Basically, our main character, Quentin, is figuring out who someone really is. As I feel is common in life, we tend to have these like generalized views of certain people, even people we know really well. And a lot of the times we don't really know who these people are, or when we find out, it's quite surprising. If you read Looking for Alaska, you can probably see some of the similarities here. I think I just feel like this is a really deep theme that I think is relatable to everyone, which is like, we're all are unique individuals, but we also all present ourselves as someone else to others. So a book tackling those kind of themes where you get to figure out who someone really is after you've painted this image of them is fascinating. And so once you put that into like a coming of age novel, which by the way, I love personally, it's like my favorite type of book, you got yourself a pretty nice treat. Either way, it's become one of my favorite John Green books, so I feel like I had to throw it in there, and because of that theme. We got another sci-fi book here, which is kind of surprising. I wouldn't think I've had two of these on here, but here we go. We got The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This one got recommended to me by a friend of mine, and I absolutely loved it. In this book, we follow a ship's crew who makes wormholes for people to travel through. Yes, that sounds insane, but it's true. But we switch from everyone's perspective and we all get a story of who these people are. So yes, while the wormhole thing is crazy, it really doesn't actually like focus on that. It's a lot more about like the dialogue between these moments and events. We're initially introduced by one of these characters in it, which is not the focus and honestly is really like the least focused on a character in the book. Basically, we have this girl and she's going to be like the receptionist for the ship and deal with all the, paperwork and whatnot. And it's through her in the beginning that we get introduced to every single character quite smoothly, by the way. And it's from that point that we just follow this crew and this specific contract they have to make this really long wormhole. But it checks every single box in what you want in a found family like trope-ish book. But I think what I like best about this book and why it stands out and why I think it's unique is everyone is so supportive and loving. I think I've gotten just so sick of like reading books where everyone just seems to hate each other or everyone just seems not to be a good person at all. And in this book, it's like, no, they're actually all great people and they treat each other with such this like respect and they clearly care about one another. And that's such a nice change of pace. Why people got to hate each other, guys. We can be nice sometimes. But because of this like great kind of world building about like the sci-fi and this like cool idea of wormholes, and then we have this amazing dialogue between characters that feels natural but caring, and it makes you want to be these people's friends. I think that's a recipe for like a terrific book. Next up, we got this second John Green book I referenced earlier. It's The Anthropocene Reviewed. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce that. This is a essay book. So if you don't really like know what that means, basically our boy John here, he writes by a bunch of topics and he kind of just like talks about them all. Like each chapter is him talking about a random object or thing or event or situation, and then he's reviewing it like he's at a Yelp restaurant or something. For example, he has a chapter about Diet Dr. Pepper and what he thinks about that. That's pretty cool. And he also has one about the internet, air conditioning, sunsets, the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest. All really interesting. I think John Green has a way with words. And I highly suggest you audiobook this because there's also 3 extra chapters if you do that, and that's also cool. I think he has such a unique perspective on the world, and it's one that I feel very relatable to. So, for example, when he does his chapter on teddy bears, he doesn't just go, teddy bears are all right. He goes, no, here's the history of teddy bears. Here's why I think they're profound and important, or why they're not important. And here's my review of it. And here's 4 stars. I just don't know a book that is this cool of an idea. And I felt genuinely like kind of sad when it ended because I just wanted it to keep going. I wanted John to start a podcast where he just reviews things. And I think it's honestly my like best nonfiction I've read this year. We are at our last book here, and we're going to end it off with Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. I think people are wrong about what this book really is because what I was told, I don't think it's correct. I went into this book being told like it was going to be very like masculinity focused, about like men and all this trouble they go through and whatever. And while it does like touch on masculinity as like a whole, it is not just about that. And really that's like kind of a side thing. What this book really is about is the idea of overconsumption in our society and about consuming things and buying this and I need this and I need to own that, which is kind of funny because in book culture, it's pretty common for people to buy a lot of books. So kind of interesting and ironic that a book is written about it. The book starts off where we get to meet the narrator. He works this like 9 to 5 that he hates, which is weirdly morally wrong. And he meets this guy named Tyler Durden. And Tyler Durden opens his eyes to a world he had never seen before. And the best way to describe Tyler is basically by like his message, which is stop letting things control you. Now he takes that to an extreme, as you will see if you read the book. This book is insane though. Like it's a crazy book. Like I read it and you're like, what is this author on? Which kind of makes me want to meet the author because I feel like he'd be clinically not well. Regardless, he wrote a pretty great book here, and it's one that I think society nowadays, with all of us with buying things and everything, I think everyone can benefit from at least the idea of what this message in this book is. That's all the books I got for you though. So hopefully, please just pick up one of those. I don't think you're going to regret it. I think you're going to learn that I'm like one of the best recommenders out there. But most importantly, keep reading books, keep having fun, and I'll see you next time.